Welcome to Night Light. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Night Light, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome, everybody, to Neon Twilight on Nightlight with your host, Solaris BlueRaven. So glad you could join us tonight because it's going to be a fun one. You all know Solaris, but just in case you don't know her, you have missed an amazing individual. She has a philosophy and a learning in her it goes beyond textbook into spiritual and beyond. She has shows on KCOR and Freedom Slips and, of course, Nightlight Radio. And she has a background that is really so impressive that you almost have to go to her website to find out about her. But she is kind enough to spend one night a month here on Nightlight and talking with me about different topics and philosophies. And tonight's is going to be an awful lot of fun if you happen to be an animal person. So welcome to your show, Solaris. I'm excited about the topic tonight.
Me too. Thank you, Barbara. Always wonderful to be here with you as we have so many wonderful conversations. And I'm really excited to talk about the animals and their effects on the mankind.
Well, I've always said, well, not always, but of late I have said that people who have animals have another quality to their energetic field. And, if you can't have animals where you're living, then if you just love animals, that's fine and wonderful. But there are people who don't want to have the bother, and that's okay. But those people who are animal people have a different vibration to them. At least that's how I perceive them.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very true. And much of that is due to the electromagnetic field, probably the aura of the animals almost connecting and merging with their guardians.
Well, and, I think personally that originally all of the animals had to be domesticated and dogs were first probably. But dogs and cats have been a part of our culture for so long. I think most people forget that in ancient times they were worshipped. I mean, for instance, cats. The Chinese believe that cats, one of cats' duties when they're on the earth plane is to take heavy energy from the energetic fields of the people they're living with. The Egyptians mummified cats and I think birds too, didn't they?
I think so. Cats mainly, wasn't it?
Yeah, mainly
I'm not
cats.
sure. I have to look at that. It's very interesting with the birds too.
Yeah, I think there were birds. I think there were ravens. But I'm not positive. I do remember seeing a tomb where there were just hundreds and hundreds of birds that had been mummified, but I can't remember which tomb it was, so we'll let it go. But you know, in India, the cow is holy. So, I mean, there are, the animals themselves have gone through a whole evolution of being worshipped to being just nice kitty, nice puppy. But I think there's a stronger energetic in them that we're missing unless we take the time to look into it.
Mhm. Yeah, they seem very advanced insofar as their own celestial design work goes, and they seem to me very, very cosmic. But, you know, so many levels of what their capabilities are. You're right about the psychic protection, and I've heard that as well about the cats, you know, drawing and taking the energy from their guardian or whoever. I think that's extremely important. And dogs do it too, I think, but not to the level the cats can, or at least they can't transmute it as well. It's just my opinion. But, yeah, it's really interesting to see how much they take from us.
Oh, yeah, and dogs especially give you unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is nothing conditional about the love that a dog gives you. Cats not so much, but
right.
But so that I think that we are negating out a very important part of our energetic field that we surround ourselves with. And we don't give credit to the animals that are a part of our lives. I mean, it floors me. I mean, it breaks my heart. Those ASPCA ads, every time they put them out there, I have to leave the room. I want to take in all of the animals that are, you know, that are shown there. It's awful. And when you think, and where was it? Thailand, I think. Yeah, I think it was Thailand. They have a lot of cats that are all feral, that live outside, and you know you're told not to try to cuddle them, but they're there to keep down the population of the rats and the mice. So they have been, and in Egypt they were worshipped for sure. So I think when we get pets of any size or any kind, that there is a psychic energy connected to that animal that enhances your own psychic ability tremendously.
I totally agree. Yeah. And I think some cats more than others, or some animals more than others. A lot of cats that are what I call circle cats, which means that anytime you're doing any alchemical or magical work or meditation or healing, they seem to be wanting to participate with that. And whether it's contributing energetically, which I think it is as well, but they do that and then also draw perhaps some things that are, you know, maybe dispel some of the things that are not necessarily positive. But I had a cat when I used to do healing work. He was a wonderful cat. His name was Darwin. But he used to jump on my clients when I would do healing work on them on the table, and they didn't mind. But he'd always every time I do a session, he wanted to be on the table there. So he got to participate quite a bit.
Oh yeah, and you know they transmute. I used to do a meditation group every week. And I would watch, you know, as soon as I started to center everybody, my cats would walk in and they'd walk around the circle, and they'd always pick someone to sit on, and it was usually a different person. And they would sit there on the person's lap very quietly, or next to them, whichever the person was most comfortable with. And I found it kind of interesting, and then I realized they were picking out the people who had emotional problems at that point in time and needed help to mitigate it. And they were dead on. On. And
that's amazing.
One woman, one of the cats always went to this one woman, and I pulled her aside and I said, you know, the cats go to you every single week. Are you going through something very, very difficult? And she said, well, I have cancer. And I said, okay, well, that'll explain it. She said, but I'm not telling anybody. And I said, well, you didn't tell the cats. But it's amazing. And dogs, too, they often have indicated to their owners who were pregnant that they were pregnant before the owner knew they were pregnant. So there is an attunement when you get a pet. It's not just you have something warm and fuzzy to play with. You are welcoming into your energetic field another level of spiritual awareness that is very, very important. And it should be treated, really better than most. They aren't. How do you say it? They are not intellectually beneath you at that particular level. Spiritually speaking, they probably are more open than we are.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, they just use a different level of communication, but yeah, I think they're extremely advanced beings. I call them life forms and beings, and there's some kind of a soul spirit force in there, and I'm sure it's a cosmic force coming from the cosmos itself. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing when you start living with animals and they become such an integral part of your life. At least for me, I've always had animals. I've always had fur babies around, but I have a lot of fur babies now, and I don't, we're just like one collective, I guess. It's really funny, but
I mean, I have Poof and I have Pete. Poof has an attitude, and Pete can't understand it and attacks her on a regular basis. So, yeah. Sooner or later, we'll all blend together. They're only like 6 or 7 years old, so I figure that sooner or later, it's going to even out. But when you think about how in temples they have been worshipped, and I mean, cats and dogs. Well, cats for sure. Dogs, I'm not so sure, but cows, monkeys, all sorts of animals have taken on a spiritual significance to different religions and cults. And I mean, even there's the Christian cult that works with snakes. Not my favorite thought, but there is something about if your energy is not afraid, then the animal is not afraid either. And I mean, I can remember at one point we spent 6 weeks at a dude ranch, and I loved the horses, and they were you can talk to them. Horses are amazingly intelligent.
Yeah, they are.
And you could call psychically, and the animal would come. There's a friend of mine who has a rescue farm, and she works with autistic children, and the horses are able to communicate with the autistic child, and then she's able to communicate with the horse to know what the child is feeling and what the child needs. It's the most profound thing I've ever seen.
It's fascinating.
It's a matter of trust that they build, that they unconditionally give you, and when their trust exists, then communication is wide open, and magic can happen. And I think I kind of want to put it out there to anyone who has pets. I know they're always considered a part of your family, but you have to understand there's way more to them than just something fluffy that you play with and empty the litter box for. And it's just sort of like they can add such great richness to your life. I have found that communicating with especially cats, dogs I haven't had as much luck with, but with the cats, if you do make that connection psychically with them, you can ask them to do things. And I think the big thing is cats don't talk English. They talk in pictures. So if you want them to do something, you send the picture to them, and they actually do it. I had 2 cats in Connecticut when I had a house there. I had a screened porch off of it, was split level, so there was a living room was upstairs, and there was a deck, and there was this sliding doors, and the cats could open it, but they never shut it. And so I really worked with them on, when I saw them going out, it was like seeing them shut the door and seeing them shut the door, and eventually they actually did it. So,
wow,
so that it was
that's
like,
impressive.
well, you can make that connection. I
believe it. Yeah.
I think that I didn't really get that for a very long time, and then at one point I had 12 cats, and one of them was not using the litter box, and I couldn't figure out why. And so I got desperate, and I went online and I found a pet psychic, and I filled out all the paperwork, and I got to the place where, you can pay, and I took a look at it, and I looked at the cat, and I said, I'm a psychic too. $250 just to find out why this is happening is way too much. And I took her, and we sat down, and I visualized her. I said to her, you have to close your eyes, and I peeked, and she wasn't, and I said, no, close your eyes, and I closed mine, and she closed hers, and I pictured her not going in the litter box, and me going, being confused, not angry, but just confused. And in about 10 minutes, I got a picture back from her of one of the other cats jumping her as she went into the litter box.
Oh, wow.
And all I had to do was give her a litter box in another place, and she was fine.
Oh, wow. Well, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially if you had that many cats. My goodness, yeah.
Well, I can't break up a litter. And
right.
So,
oh, wow. That was a big litter then, wasn't it?
Well, no, I already had a couple, and the reason I had so many was that my mother was she was ill. She had dementia, and she was ill, and the doctor wanted to give her something for her mood because she was depressed. And I said, well, let me try something first before you go drugging her. And I went out and got 2 kittens. And the 2 kittens, you can't have kittens and not laugh. You just can't. I mean, it's impossible. And so that worked for almost a year and a half. And then she slipped into the depression again. And the next time I was just going to get 2 more. And it was a litter of 3. And the person who had it said, well, I'll just put the one you don't want down. And, I couldn't do that. So I took all 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I can't believe they would have put the other one down. That's terrible.
Oh, it was awful. And they had already put the mother down, and the mother hadn't finished nursing. So
that's horrible. Oh, geez.
I had to bottle feed him. So, but it was fun. But but I, and eventually, my mother, I couldn't get any more cats. 12 was enough. And so I did.
You have to move out or get a bigger house.
Oh my God, it was it took a while to kind of siphon it down a little bit, and then when I had my number down, then Patrick moved in and he brought 3 cats with him, so we were back up there for a while, but wow. I think people have to understand that these animals are so much more than just playthings, and it goes even for the wildlife outside your home. And if you are an animal lover, you will attract animals, and it is so it is so exciting to see just how many you can draw in. When I moved to Tennessee, of course I put bird feeders out, and then it was like, okay, I came from the woods in Connecticut, and I'd seen 1 deer. There's a whole herd of deer here, and they always seem to kind of cluster around where my condo is. And then the other day, I saw something sitting on my deck, my patio, on its hind legs, just looking out around everything, and I stuck my head out, and I kind of just said, "Are you okay?" And it looked at me and it just stood there. So I went out, I sat. It was a groundhog.
Oh, wow.
And he kind of sat on the deck with me every day for a little while.
Oh, that's cute.
But I think people have to. I would like to see, with the craziness that's going on today and people not being able to get along, I think appreciating the animals that they've got living with them is something that maybe everybody needs to work on just a little bit, because there are ways of communicating, and it's not just training them to not go to the bathroom in the house, though that's important, especially with dogs. But it's kind of like actually tuning into their energy and getting to understand where they're coming from and what their purpose is, because we don't randomly pick up animals; they pick us up. And
that's very true.
So how did you get yours?
Mine, the Humane Society. It's just one of those things. And I had Lex. I had my senior dog, and then I really wasn't looking for another dog. I just happened to come across Orion, and he's such a beautiful boy. And I visited with him, and I said, well, you're going to make somebody a really good home, good pet or whatever. And I just left, and I came back a couple of days later and picked him up. So, and it's funny because I wasn't planning on having any more animals after Lex, and yet, these other ones showed up. So, but they were just there. It's just the energy. There was something about his energy in the picture I saw. And then when I met him, he's such a gentle soul. You could just feel the energy from him. He's a good boy. You heard him bark in the background, but there's no dog outside. But yeah, it's just it's real interesting how that is. But they do pick us. And when I first met with my other dog Lex, who passed away, it was interesting because he was in a whole litter of puppies. I mean, there was 8 or 9 of them. I mean, it's huge. And he went just climbing over the rest of them to get to me. So I knew he was the one. He just picked me. And he turned out to be one of my most special dogs ever. So it's real interesting. They're very sweet.
Do you think there is a certain level of spiritual energy that somebody has that has animals that other people don't have?
Oh, I think so. I think that the energetic is there, and whether it's just from their natural spiritual path working that they do, there's just something there that radiates more energetics from the cosmic design. And I feel that the animals really do dial into that. They tune in, and they pick and choose who they want as well. So it's always a kind of a meshing of energies when you meet them. It's really interesting. But I've always had good luck with animals. They seem to resonate with me. I'm kind of, I don't know, the energetics are always there with animals, the animal kingdom.
Well, I sometimes have said I'd rather have animals than friends.
Yeah. For family.
I mean, I don't mean that totally, but there's something about the trust and the affection that they give you that is so unconditional. And, they're not expecting anything other than food from you. And
or trees.
And it's just, or trees, yeah, that too. Or with Poof, who has long hair, brush me, I'm clumping.
That sounds like Merlin, my cat. He's the long hair too. Yeah.
Oh my God. But it's just the more I look at it, the more I read about ancient Egypt, especially, realizing how important the cats were, and I haven't found anything that tells me why they were, but they were definitely in the temples, and they were absolutely they were mummified. There are tombs with just cats in them, and I'm wondering what was their purpose, because there had to have been a spiritual purpose. Or I think wasn't there? I don't think there is. I thought for a minute there might have been a goddess that was a cat, but I don't think so.
Oh, there is. Well, there's Bastet, and she's the goddess.
Okay.
And there's Sekhmet too. So you've got the goddess of protection, and I believe good health, family, and love. So that would make sense insofar as how they associated the cat energy with the goddess for that, and then working with whatever rituals they were doing. I'm sure the cats were participating just like they do, with energy. That's very interesting. But yeah, she's a beautiful one, Bastet. So that must have been the one, of course, Sekhmet as well, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah.
Yeah.
But that's all fertility and childbirth for Bastet.
Well, yeah, and, that would make sense because, with childbirth, which is not too comfortable, being able to go over those waves of discomfort. And in nursing homes, they have cats, and the cats, at one nursing home, they said that the cat always predicted who was going to pass over next because she was always on their bed. Then they figured out that whoever was, passing was cold, so they had an electric blanket, and that's what the cat was going for. But I think there's another level there too. I think cats attune to what you need at any particular point in time. Pete, my boy, he's a very large cat. I tell people he has big bones. Well, he does, but he is a big cat, and every night when I settle down in bed, he gets up and he tucks me in. He needs me all along my back, and he tucks me in, and then he goes off and does his own thing. But he waits for me to go to bed so he can tuck me in. Now, that's just so cool. It's not funny.
Well, it's evolved. There's something outside the perimeter of normal behavior, if you ask me. Or what is normal with cats anyway? But yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, no,
They're smart.
They are. They are, and it's not just the domesticated ones, the wild ones as well. There was a picture on, it wasn't on Facebook. It was on the news. It was apparently a lion in Africa that was very, very sick, and went into a camp and laid down by this one hunter who realized the cat was sick, and he carried the cat on his back to a vet who could help the cat get better.
Wow.
Now, this was a wild animal. This was a wild animal that this was not somebody that had been somebody's pet or anything like that. It needed help, and it knew how to get it. So, you hear stories like that, and you think, well, these animals are just so magical. And I have found that if there's a meditation or something going on, they're almost always there. If I'm doing readings on the computer, or if I'm doing a reading, for someone who is on the phone, the cats are right there. They soak up that level of energy that happens when you're channeling something for someone else, and they're amazing. So I guess the message out there is to everybody to pay a little more attention to the pets that you've got living with you, because they can give you so much more than they're already giving you if you give them a chance.
Very much so.
And of course, there is also the fact that there's a healing quality to their energy that is profound. So I know when my mother passed away, my sister, my son and daughter-in-law and my sister and her husband came to the house, and my sister was just absolutely, she lost it all over the place. And one of the cats would always crawl on her chest and just hang there with her, and she said, "Oh, this is cool." And I said, "Well, they're trying to take the sadness out of you." And now she loves cats too, but she poo-pooed me at first, and then it happened so often that she said, I think that may be what's happening, because I do feel better. And I said, well, I'm really glad. So if you have those kind of experiences, and dogs and cats have become separated from their families and have crossed thousands of miles to be reunited with them. So there is a quality to our animals that we don't give them credit for.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, a lot of spiritual bonding, what you're describing as well. They're very powerful beings. I mean, they're just the energies that they radiate, just like the spirit cats. I mean, they can be very, very powerful. And in my opinion, they see so much. When we know they see energetics, they see things beyond the realm of this field of energy. So, not all of them, but I would suspect many, and I'm sure you've had that too, where your cats have kind of looked and dialed into another portal or something where they're seeing something that you can't see, and it's not an insect. I mean, there's things like that go on all the time. And I do notice that people feel better energetically when there's a dog or a cat around. It lowers the blood pressure, even on the linear scale. It does so many things on a health level. And then on the spiritual level, there's emotional healing. In my opinion, I think there's a level of emotional healing that takes place with animals and their guardians.
Oh, absolutely. And I know especially with mine, every now and then I'll see them looking in the air at something, and it's like, I don't see it, but I know there's something there.
And they watch the skies. I mean, they know. Oh,
yeah. Well, and sometimes it is a bug, but most time it's not. And they will suddenly come to attention and be looking at a certain part of the room, and it's like, okay, so we have a visitor, and that's cool, and everybody's welcome so long as they're they've got peace and love in their hearts, and and then they'll just go back to sleep. It's kind of like, okay, it's an okay person or spirit or soul or whoever.
Right. But, they're very switched on.
They are great indicators. I mean, and I am more of a cat person than a dog person, only because dogs have to be walked and they have to have exercise, and that's beyond me at this point in time.
Well, I don't blame you on that one. I mean, like I said, I have no business doing. I still have my dogs, but I'm young enough still in the illusion of aging, I guess, to do all that stuff. But yeah, I'm not getting any more. That's it.
Well, I don't know. The itty bitty dogs are awful cute.
Oh, they are. Those little teacup dogs, yeah.
But I have a feeling that if I got a little bitty dog, my cats would not be happy.
No, they wouldn't want that. They don't want to share that. I doubt
Every
it.
dog I've ever had has had a scar on its nose when it learned that cats rule. And
Oh. Or the ears. I had one cat that would actually, he used to bite at my other dog's ear. He didn't hurt him, but yeah, that's one of my cats used to do that. Put him in his place.
Yeah, it's cat's rule. That's all there is to it. But those maybe not a teacup, because I would be afraid I'd step on it, but a little bit bigger, but big enough to be known, but small enough to be picked up and carried would be kind of cool. But at this point I've got 2 cats, and I don't. While I wouldn't mind having more, it's just kind of I have to kind of pay attention to how old I am too, and want to make sure that my cats are taken care of. So that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
for
they
now.
outlive us. I mean, I think they'd outlive anybody. Honestly, I think about that all the time with my cats. Like, can't break them up because they're a pride. There's 3 of them. So
yeah.
They're very bonded to each other. They're not related, but they certainly are bonded.
Well, the only time I've seen my cats bonded is when there's trauma of some sort. Then Pete will take care of Poof. Other than that,
that's good.
Other than that, she screams and she curses like nothing I've ever heard. There's fur has flown, but so far blood has not been drawn. So I have a feeling it's
that's good.
It's all bark and no bite. But I really, I'm looking at so many people today have there's so much depression going on, and it seems to me, it's it's a natural thing to bring a loving animal into an environment, but there are people that just don't want to be bothered, and it's like kind of like, oh, how could you turn yourself off from that? It just it floors me. It really does. But when you look at what's going on today energetically in the world, how do you help people? How do you tell people? What are the suggestions you give to people who are going through these times that are so, just so confusing and upsetting, and you don't know who to listen to, and you don't know what direction to go, and so what do you say to people who are looking for something to give them security, stability, and peace, and not fork out a fortune?
Right. Well, I think it's just finding a positive outlet. It's converting all the energetics that are non-productive into something more positive for an outcome. And I do think that animals do make a huge difference in your lifestyle. If you live alone, they're very healing, and there's a good energetic exchange between animals and people. But for regular people, these are hard times, if you ask me. I think they're very challenging for a lot of people who haven't done any real spiritual work or path work. It's just going to be very chaotic for them for a while until they figure out that their higher self, oversoul, superconscious needs to be more integrated into their daily routines. And I think when that happens, then you get all the blissful, more peaceful energetics, which allow you to be more compassionate around animals and even other people. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But in my opinion, I think that's what has to happen for these people. Otherwise, they're just going down a black hole.
Well, you know how they say with people who are not cat people, the first thing you tell them to try to do is to keep a plant alive. And if they can keep a plant alive, they might be able to keep an animal alive.
Yeah.
It's just I look around and I see so much chaos and so much upset and so much confusion. And where we used to be able to sort of figure out who the bad guys were and the good guys, it's not the case anymore. And
it's one shade of gray. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I see. Yeah. And a lot of people aren't mentally stable enough to have animals either. That's another thing I factor in. I'd rather see people not have the animal if they weren't mentally stable enough to have the animal, or if they weren't financially secure enough to have the animal. I mean, there's so many things that have to be factored in, and I think those are things. I see a lot of people who aren't educated that have animals that really don't know how to train them or work with them, and and it's not like they're malicious. It's just that they're just not educated, and the animal suffers the consequences for that.
That's true. A long time ago, when I was much younger, at Easter time, oftentimes kids got little chicks or bunny rabbits, and they didn't last long. So it's kind of, you're absolutely right. You do want to make sure that they go to a good home. And actually, a lot of the shelters today are very good about really screening the people that they're giving animals to, and that's a good thing. There is a shelter up in Connecticut where if you're a senior citizen, you can adopt a senior cat, and this particular shelter will pay for the vet bills for the cat, will pay for the litter and the food, and if you can no longer take care of the cat, they will take the cat back. But
that's nice.
But you can't get a kitten. You have to take a senior cat, a cat who might not be. Kittens are always going to get adopted, but the senior cats that are 10 and older, probably not.
Right.
And
I think that's a nice idea.
Oh, it's a fabulous idea. And I think when my two are gone in 10 years or so, I probably will look for some place like that, because I would take a senior cat in. I would, not mind having a senior cat to be senior with me. But it's sort of like, but the kittens, how do you turn down a kitten? I mean,
Oh, I'm a sucker for animals. I'm the wrong person to talk to. And dogs, cats, animals. Yeah, I'm just a sucker for animals. I can't go to the Humane Society. I'll adopt one. It's just as simple as that.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. And actually, one of the people here has a 17-year-old parrot, and I mean big parrot. Mm-hmm. And when you go into the house, the parrot looks you up and down and goes, "Here, kitty, 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 kitty." And when you look at the parrot and you say, "Here, kitty, kitty, kitty," it'll meow at you.
Oh, that's too funny.
It's
adorable.
It's a great bird. Messy as hell,
mm-hmm.
but
yeah, they are.
And they go 70 years. So
really, wow.
Oh, parrots!
Must be a legacy to that one.
Parrots live long and prosper, and
mm-hmm.
this one, he'll say, "Where's Carol?" Because Carol is, I think, the other daughter of the lady who owns it. And she'll say, "Carol's not here now." And then the bird will say, "Where's Bob?" And Bob's not here either. And the bird comes back with, "What about Bob?"
That is too funny.
She has lovely conversations with the bird. But again, another, it's there's something magical about animals that I
mm-hmm.
don't think many people give them credit for. They are truly more than they seem.
Mm-hmm. They're very smart. Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it broke my heart when they sent a dog into space. And they sent a monkey too.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like that either. Yeah. No. Well, they experiment on animals all the time, which I'm still, I'm totally against all that. They shouldn't be doing anything like that with the animals at all. Simple as that. And I know that some countries eat animals. They eat dogs. There's a dog market. There's a meat market for animals. I mean, it's disgusting. I think China's a prime example of meat markets for. This is Tia Marie over at KCR, but she's adopted. Yeah. She adopted a dog who was going to be basically used for food in China. There are people that rescue these dogs and take them out of the country, and she managed to get one. And it's just heartbreaking because they're beautiful. There's golden retrievers, and they're gorgeous. I mean, why would anybody want to do that? The thing is, they're not like they don't feel. They don't have emotional bodies, so they don't understand. They understand quite well. And this is the most inhumane thing when you think about how rude and disgusting people can be. Like, I can't even fathom that kind of behavior. I really can't. It doesn't even occur to me to behave that way. And you have to ask, what happens in the psyche when people switch into that program and they think that animals don't feel or they don't care or it's okay? It's disgusting, honestly.
No, definitely. But that's China, huh? Well, because during World War II, my dad was in the FBI, and they made a raid on a Japanese couple, their home, and they went through stuff, and they found a paper that had all sorts of seals on it and ribbons, and it looked like a very important document. And they confronted with the Japanese people, what is this? What is this? What does this say? And the woman looked at my father and said, "That's the cat license." And apparently that's what it was. So, the raid came up with nothing. But it was kind of like they treasure them. They don't eat them. But in many societies they do. Heck, when that ancestor of mine was trying to discover the North Pole, they had sled dogs, and they had to eat the sled dogs because they were starving. And
terrible.
The last sled dog was his favorite, and his name was Snoozer. And
I wouldn't do it. I'd rather just expire. I'm sorry, I couldn't do it.
No, I don't think he was able to eat it either. But if it's a matter of life or death, and there are times when that does happen, but happily not often. But I can't believe that they would be, a part of experimentation of drugs and stuff like that. It sickens me to think that animals would be used that way.
And the people that do it. That's what I can't figure out is what the hell's wrong with people that think it's okay to do that to an animal? How do you live with yourself? Honestly, I don't get it. It's like those beagles that were tortured. I mean, they had all kinds of horrible things they were doing experiment-wise, and it's just so not evolved. You know, when you think about it, it's unnecessary. It really is. They don't need to be used that way.
Well, even
once you realize
rats.
how deep they are. Yeah, I mean, they're all living beings. They're life forms. They're intelligent. It's just, yeah. Well, look at the dolphins. Look how they were trained in the military, to be more weaponized.
Oh, with the with the bombs on their backs, yeah.
Mhm.
It's just
like everything.
It does make you wonder when our government, when the first thing they do is how can I weaponize something? That's a little scary.
Yeah, it's a bad seed, if you ask me. It's a bad seed behavior.
I mean, there has to be a better way of testing this stuff. And with all the animals that they use for cosmetics, happily, that has slowed down some, I think.
Mhm.
But it does kind of wrench your gut a little bit. It's kind of like Planet of the Apes, in a way, should have taught people something. I know people thought it's science fiction, big deal, but the reality is they have the capacity to evolve. And
all life forms do, absolutely.
So that. While they thought it was science fiction, I don't see them taking over the world quite yet. But they, it's, and you don't know what aliens are going to look like either. I mean, you've done more work with aliens than I have actually. So,
well, we're descendants of the visitors, according to where I've been. So, we are them and they are us, and they look a lot like us insofar as their biosuit goes. And if you ask me, our biosuit's origins is initiated from off-planet. So, even if you want to believe it's from here and indigenous to this world, it's not. The construct itself was from off-planet. People will never believe it. That's okay, but it's in my book.
Well, no, that's very true. When you look at the fact that, we have such trouble with, the extreme temperatures and stuff like that, obviously,
we were never supposed to be here.
No, I mean, it's kind of, it's interesting. I'm reading a book now about, it's from material from Blalock. Yeah. Was he a survivor?
Oh, I love Al Bielek.
Was he a survivor of the Philadelphia experiment?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, supposedly he had been involved in that.
Okay,
he's an interesting fellow. He was when he was here.
This book is a lot of his material that he had put together, and it dealt with the age of the Great Pyramid.
Oh, nice.
And when we actually did set foot on this planet, and I'm just a little bit into it, but it's really fascinating because it talks about the fact that the Great Pyramid is much older than we think, and that it predates Adam. And when the Great Pyramid was built, there was no Egypt and there was no Egyptians. It was the land of Nod, according to the Bible. So the Great Pyramid, predates Adam and Eve, and if that's the case, then the book is going into who actually built it, because they go into all of the intricacies of the weight of the stones, the ability to cut the stones, and people at that time frame just did not have the ability to do any of that, and especially not the Egyptians. So that pyramid was
and
there.
And they shaped the territory too. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when the pyramid was built there, where it was built in the center of the landmass of the world. You know, there was no Egypt, and it was thousands of years before the Egyptians, you know, came in. So I don't know if he's talking about Atlantis or Atlanteans building it. You know, when I read further, I'll fill you all in. But
what's the name of the book, Barbara? What's the name of the book? Now I want to know.
Okay. Let me see. Do I have the thing here?
You can text it to me if you don't have it in front of you. Just send it to me. I'm curious.
It's really here it be. It's called Mysteries of the Pyramid.
Okay.
But it's from Al Stuff, and it's. I have to admit, I prefer my books to be on Kindle so I can, you know, read them more easily.
Mm-hmm.
And this book is not, but happily I have a magnifying glass that will, you know, magnify a whole page.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh yeah, no, it really is. So that's what I'm plowing through this book with. And I have to tell you, it snagged me immediately when it goes into all sorts of different aspects of telling, you know, when we came here and how we came here, and so it looks like it's a good read.
Mhm. Oh, it sounds excellent. Yeah, it makes sense to me. And you know, I was mentioning how they seek territories because a lot of these areas, these civilizations, it's not them. They just happen to come across it. Once again, you know, and say they're the ones that did it, and we're the builders of this. And it's like, you know, they hijack territories all the time. This is still going on. Ley lines get hijacked, sacred sites get hijacked, power spots get hijacked. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, and what gets me is that you know they start to they weave a story around it so that they convince you that a certain culture actually did build it, and you know the stories of how the Egyptians built the pyramids with copper tools and everything. I mean, it's just stupid, and yet that's in the history books. That's what they're telling. That's the story.
His story, her story. That's what it stands for. History, his story. And it's very interesting how they do that. Well, it's always rewritten. Think about how much they're sanitizing even now. You know, I mean, a prime example would be something like Google, right? Search engine. It gives you what it wants you to see and hear, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth in it. And if you put the truth out, it will dispute that and call it disinformation. So you see how these algorithms and programs work, and that's just one thing. But this has been going on for a long time. Unfortunate.
Well, and you know, you stop and think about it. I mean, look at all of the different stories about what the Pyramid of Giza was. It was a power center. It was a tomb. It was, you know, on and on and on. And nothing really resonates. But, you know, when I saw Al Bielek's name, I thought, oh, wait a minute, this may be, it was a gal who runs a pyramid conference every year in Chicago. And she keeps trying to talk me into coming, and I keep saying, yeah, not this year, you know. Can't do it this year, and I've not done it for like 10 years, and you know, don't plan on it actually. You know, it's just I've done conventions and I don't like them. So, but no, this book looks really, really good, and you know, it's.
I'll have to take a peek at that one for sure.
Yeah, because when it goes into not only who built the pyramids, but the races, you know, and where we came from, and when humans first came onto the Earth plane, and the fact that when Adam and Eve were created, Adam and Eve were not the first people, but they were the first people that were put in the garden. Because there were people here, because when they were expelled, and Cain was expelled, he went to the local town and he married somebody, and then he, you know, created his own city. So there were people here. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's kind of, it intrigued me, and so I will happily read this book. And of course, he's not around anymore, so I can't interview him. So this is a for pleasure book.
Oh, it would have been nice to talk to him and interviewed him.
Oh yeah, I mean, was he involved in the Montauk stuff too?
Yeah, he was. And I knew him indirectly. I never met him, but I knew somebody who was connected to him. But I've talked with Preston Nichols. Of course, he isn't around anymore, and a few others. Stuart Swerdlow is another one who's very interesting to interview if you ever get your hands on him. He kind of doesn't do very many interviews anymore, but he's fabulous when you do get him. So those are people I recommend if you can interview them.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are. Well, and Andrew Collins, the one that I just did interview, he was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his story about Sobek Nefru, the first female prophet, was fascinating. And now I love ancient Egypt. I have been into it since I was in the 4th or 5th grade, and I made a replica of King Tut's tomb. And
nice.
And ever since then, I have been fascinated with the whole culture and everything. And I was not. Thanks, Pharaoh, not prophet. It's nice to have Mark around to correct you.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. With Andrew Collins' book, I wasn't aware of all the little kind of city-states there were at that time, and I wasn't aware of Sobek, the female pharaoh. I wasn't familiar with her story at all, and yet stories have been written about her. Bram Stoker wrote about her. One of his fictional books is about her, and so it's sort of like the cool thing about doing what we do is that you always have something else to learn, and it tickles me pink to be able to clomp onto material that I hadn't heard before and incorporate it into my own philosophy, what fits and what doesn't. And, it kind of expands your own awareness and understanding of what history has been and how exciting it is and how painful it is that history is not taught appropriately. I mean,
oh, I know.
History is magic. And I don't understand why the history books for school, first of all, are so wrong, but they teach it as such a dry subject that people can't get excited about it. And when Lewis and Clark went out to discover a pathway to the Pacific, they were told to look for Indians that had Irish descent or spoke Gaelic or whatever, and they were they had a special code that they were sent back to, I think it was Jefferson. And because apparently when we bought the country from England may not have been the first people here, and that would have been the Irish, and they wouldn't have had the right to sell us the country. So Jefferson was very concerned with finding if there were any Christians among the Indians, because if there were, that would mean that we bought the country from the wrong person. So
that's interesting.
It is, and there was a diary that one of them, I don't know if it was Lewis or Clark, but one of them was bringing it back to give to Jefferson, and he was killed. He committed suicide by shooting himself in the head 3 times. You tell me how he did that.
Yeah,
exactly. And it was a suicide.
Forced suicide.
But there's so many really great stories historically connected to this country that nobody has ever taught.
It's a real mystery.
Well, and kids don't care anymore.
No, they don't. They're stuck on their iPhones right now. A lot of them.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It's very frightening because, I mean, I have such fun finding, new stuff out, and it's almost as though they don't care. They're so intrigued by and captured by and hypnotized by the cell phones that it's really scary. And
it's
now
the monolith
I
all over again.
Oh yeah, but I have to admit that I'm a little bit like that, because when I had lost power and I no longer had the internet, it was almost like, oh my gosh, I don't have the internet. I had books to read. That was fine, but I had lost my communication with the world, and that was frightening. So I think that there is going to be some sort of clampdown on the internet in the next 10 years.
Oh, I think maybe before that, but yeah.
Well, I was kind of giving myself a safety net there. And I also think that we are going to have is it EMP or EVP? I think that there's going to be...
EMP. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an attack on our country that has to do with the computers. No bombs, but total disruption as far as communication goes. I mean, I have to admit, I rely on the internet and telephones just about the same as everybody else does. Jeannie, she lost her phone, got stolen, and her husband got her a burner phone actually, and she dropped it in the toilet by accident. So I lost communication with her for about a week. And it was so strange because I talked to her every day, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, there's an empty space here. There's so that if you take our communication away from us, we become a very disoriented population, I think.
Well, they have to go back to the old ways of communicating, if that's the case. I'm sure there's always a backup system, but nonetheless, I mean, we never had the internet, and we were able to have more of that streaming consciousness, telepathic communication naturally. Knowing things before they happen. I mean, that's just the way we stream consciousness. So it can reestablish itself. There's no doubt about that. But it's true, people's brainwaves have been entrained now. They're kind of reconstructed and reprogrammed. So it is a little bit more difficult and more challenging, especially for the children. I think they would probably lose it, quite honestly, without their toys. And I mean, I like having the convenience of internet and this, that, and the other, but,
Well, it's sort of like you can learn a lot of stuff, but how do you share it?
Right.
It's I think that's one of the things that I love about the internet is that we can get on a call like this, and we can talk about antiquity, and we can talk about philosophy, and we can talk about all sorts of things, and people can not only listen in while we're doing it, but more likely than not, archive it and listen to it at their leisure and learn something. And they can pick something up. And if you and I throw a book title or something around, they can pick the book up and check it out too. So that we have not only the communication between you and I, but anybody who listens, anybody who picks up any of, the trivia that we put out there, and we put out a tremendous amount of information from time to time, and it's a wonderful way of sharing things that we get excited about, and there was a book not too long ago called, it had something to do, it was the void in the Giza, in the Pyramid of Giza, the pyramid void or whatever. And the author was sure that he knew how it was created and what was stored in it. And there is a chamber, a void, that has no way of getting into it. And so, you kind of wondered, what was it used for? What was it for? And I think they have recently put a camera into it and found that it was empty, which is very sad.
Yeah, no kidding.
But so what was it for? So again, one of those things of the Great Pyramid. There's no writings that talks about the building of it. So and when they say it was for Khufu, no, it wasn't. And so who was it for? What was it for? I may, when I finish this book, know what it was for. But it's apparently they talk about an excavation someplace where they found a sandalwood box in almost like a concrete chamber, and they kind of threw it aside and they didn't pay any attention to it. And when somebody did pick it up and look at what was inside, it was all of this paperwork, this chronicling of where under the pyramid or under the Sphinx was a chamber. And so I haven't gotten there yet, but I will let you know when I do. But it's sort of like this material is quite profound. Now, how accurate it is, I don't know. I know that antiquities in Egypt won't let them dig beneath the Sphinx or the Great Pyramid for fear of destabilizing it, and I can understand that. But at the same time, there is a door under the Sphinx. One of the paws, there was a doorway or a chamber, and I don't know if they went into that or checked out what was there or not. But I think there is something there. But I don't think it's the Hall of Records that everybody is yelling about, because I don't believe I don't know. What do you think about the Hall of Records? I don't think it's under the pyramid.
Well, to me, it's always been in the field, the ether. Beyond the ether field is what we access. When we're reading the Halls of Amente, for example, the Emerald Tablets, and we're looking at information. But to me, it feels like it's in between the fields of energy. So it's a construct of energy and fractals of data where you can access them through different multidimensional states of consciousness. And that's how we acquire our field of energy, our information packets. So that's just the way I see it. Insofar as a physical arc type thing, I don't know what exactly they're expecting, but in my opinion, I find it to be very, all of the technology associated with that pyramid initially should be in a different space-time configuration. End of story. Even if we had craft or anything exotic, it would be in a different space-time. Even if it was holding a pattern in between the realms between here and there, in my opinion, I think that's what's going on.
I think you're right. I think I think a great deal of that information comes into our physical body when spirit enters it, and it brings with it parts of a spiritual DNA with part of the Hall of Records where it that have to do with that particular spirit and that particular spirit's evolution, not necessarily for countries or the planet or anything like that. So that I believe that the Hall of Records isn't really a hall, and I don't believe that we're going to discover any Hall of Records physically on this plane. But I do believe that there is a Hall of Records etherically, and we can tap into it, and we can through meditation and whatever we can get into it and leaf through. Well, I don't know that we sit there and leaf through, but we can check out and we can look into history and it's just sort of, I think what bothers me so greatly is history is so fraught with stupidity that it's written by the ones who won the war or whatever, and we don't really get the true story of what anything comes from. I do believe that there was an Atlantis.
Yeah.
And this the book that Collins wrote. Grant Phillips wrote a book called Doggerland, and he goes back in time, and he basically is saying that 5,000 years ago, the sea levels were easily 400 feet lower, so that there definitely are civilizations that are underwater that could probably fill in some of the missing links to our understanding of cultures and everything. But as it is now, the levels of the ocean are rising. So it's not going to be, unless you're in a submersible. And then the lady that wrote the book on the petroglyphs of Mu, she was going to write a book on Nan Madol, and off of the shore of Nan Madol is where Lemuria supposedly is sunk, and so I think she's having trouble with publication actually, because she's scheduled to come on the show as soon as her book is published.
Oh, nice.
But it's kind of like there is so much actual history that we aren't seeing, and we just people have filled the blanks with, well, maybe this happened or maybe that happened, and let's sell it this way because that way it fills in the gaps and doesn't leave any questions. And unfortunately, the people that are filling in the gaps, first of all, have no imagination, and second of all, are filling it in only to their benefit. So it's kind of like you just really wish you could find the truth. And then you have wonderful books like The Shining Ones that talks about interdimensional people that came to Earth to cultivate it and to make it to get it ready for their culture to come and live here. And I don't know if I read the book. It never got to the point in time where they did start to actually live here. They did interbreed, and that's where we came from, with the interbreeding of these Shining Ones with the human population that was already here. So, at least according to that author, that would be the O'Briens. So there's so many wonderful philosophies out there, and they all probably have a piece of absolute truth to them. And
thinking outside the box. Yep.
And so you have to read all these books, and you pick a grade up here and a grade up there, and and then even if you think you have it all figured out, then you pass away, and then you didn't have it right. And it's kind of like, it will be, certainly when I do cross over and I find out the real story, I'm going to be ticked off that I hadn't figured it out, probably.
Send digital postcards. It is such a disservice to me. It's just a waste of time not to have the real data versus all the obfuscations. To me, I never, to the life of me, I'll never understand that. There's no justification for it. There really isn't. On any level.
Well,
it's a shame.
I think, the past is fascinating, and I love it. But it's more like the future. This book on the pyramid by Blalock, it tells all, theoretically, it fills in all the spaces up until the Holocaust time where everything is destroyed. At the end of this century, I think, is when it's predicted. So
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not going to be around to the end of the century anyhow, so I'm not really too worried. But I could be back by that time. You know, and I think if I had any power to do anything, I would love to be able to take the knowledge that I've gathered each lifetime and remember it.
Mhm. Yeah, what's the point in having it if you're not going to be able to access it?
Well, you experience it,
remember.
you learn the lesson, and you move on. But it seems to me that I mean, I from time to time when I've been in places, I know I've been there before. I can remember visiting Jeannie and going into a barn there where the woman kept her horses, and I suddenly I couldn't breathe, and I said, I have to get out of here. This place, there was a big fire here, and I can't breathe. And it turns out that the barn had burned down. So and you know, you have moments when you do know something from the past, or you see something from the past, but they're so fleeting. You know, you can't really put it together as a puzzle and say, aha, that's what their time frame was from. You know, from. I mean, I would love to be able to really get some accurate information about things like Atlantis and Lemuria and when we actually did set foot upon the planet, because and where we came from. Now you know where we came from theoretically.
Well, I go by our off-world intelligence systems, and our composition, for certain, is off-planet. So with that, you know, the DNA sequencing, everything we're about is where this isn't home. So I think the biggest thing for me is to get us to that level of traversing the galactic highway and going to where we came from. It wasn't like we had a destroyed world or something and we had to go here. You know, we are part of that cosmic neighborhood, and we need to be there, in my opinion. And it's funny because I was just talking to Nishna last night on another show, Cyberwitch Cafe, but she was talking about this whole thing with Congress and them testifying about UFOs, and I did not listen to it. And I don't know if you did or not, but she was mentioning that the guy was talking about how they're aggressive and they're considered the enemy, and they're non-human intelligence. They're basically painting it up to be the enemy. That off-world species is the enemy, and we are descendants of the visitors, which means we're the enemy. And I was like, this is insanity in motion. Whoever's coming up with these storyboards over there really needs to knock it off, because this is about our galactic heritage, and it's really infuriating to me.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I don't know if you listened to that or not. Did you get to listen to any of it?
No. Are you talking about
it's that UAP, or they call it UAP. No, it's that whole thing in Congress where he was. They were doing a testimony pertaining to extraterrestrial.
And he said there was a biological whatever. Yeah. Wouldn't say there was a person. Said there was a biological entity there. Which.
Well, that could be a lot of things.
Well, and I don't think he knew what he was talking about.
No, I'm gonna profile it. I'm gonna do an assessment on it, and I've been trying not to because it makes me very angry. Because whenever I hear them talking about things where, you know, the aggressors are the off-world species, I get very upset, because that's not the case. And if that's even, you know, if they're thinking that's the case, then they're being aggressive. They're initiating attacks. You know, it's as simple as that. You know, you passively harass somebody long enough, they're going to counter. It's as simple as that.
Well, yeah, and you know, the more I learn, the more I experience, the more the UFOs have been out there forever, but I think they were here first. And
well, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So go ahead.
So we are the invaders.
That's correct. Yes, very much so. And I don't consider us invaders. I mean, we're descendants of the visitors, however you want to formulate it. But in my opinion, this whole matrix was a lie, and that we need to go home. This is the whole idea behind taking it all down and exposing it for what it really is. But we've got people, controllers right now, who are literally creating storyboards and lies about what we are, our heritage, our history, and then creating all these other scenarios connected to how aggressive extraterrestrials are and how much of a threat they are. And, you know, it's all propaganda. So,
well,
to me, it's kind of like, I'm kind of tired of this. Go ahead.
If the extraterrestrials were in any way, shape, or form aggressive, they would have wiped us out and terraformed the planet, thousands of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point you make right there.
I mean, it's kind of like, we are in many ways a virus on the planet, and they have done nothing to stop us. They have tried to actually coexist with us, and there are. They have our government has made us feel like we have to defend ourselves from these aliens, and there probably are bad aliens and good aliens, like there are bad humans and good humans, but for the most part, it seems to me that what we've seen are shuttles of some sort that are in the atmosphere, especially the balls of light and things like that. It boggles my mind to think that they have, if there was a bad bone in their bodies, whatever their bodies are, that they would have just wiped us out and taken their planet back, but they didn't. They're sharing it, and it wasn't until we started doing really the nuclear explosions that they got upset. Even with Admiral Berg and going down into in Middle Earth, what they were worried about was the the nuclear explosions. Not wanting the atmosphere to be destroyed. So no. I don't think we belong here either, though I'm very comfortable.
No, and we're actually moving in. Yeah, and if you read my books, and I know you looked at them, we're moving into a different space-time configuration. That's going to change the whole formula of the atmosphere anyway. So, if they're worried about puncturing, a hole in the configuration or the space-time, it's already getting done in a sense. And, I still think it's a propaganda board. I think they've literally created the storyboard to create the psyop of how aggressive the extraterrestrial design is, just to play it out. But it's completely false. And then, of course, I've always said, we have weapons systems that have been far more nefarious when it comes down to directed energy weapons and electronic warfare and brain hacking, remote brain hacking, and entrainment programs, which is beyond MKUltra. I mean, they don't talk about that. They never mention a word about any of that, but that's the culprit behind everything. And if we were to get all that exposed and get the people behind it, which are literally two-legged here on this rock, this earth, then we would literally have everything in order, in a sense. And that's really what needs to happen. That's the true disclosure. That's what I've been talking about for I don't know how long. But that's what really needs to happen instead of playing the boogeyman with all this other stuff,
It's just, and they throw red flag after red flag at us to kind of distract us from what's really going on.
Yeah, and that's what that was. That whole thing was just a circus act. And once again, a derailment, controlling the narrative, but also avoiding the truth and what's really happening here. And what they're doing nefarious things with electronic warfare and psychotronic weapons. And I can tell you, they can interconnect the target remotely. They can control and manipulate the brainwave activity. They can install radio transmissions to communicate. And they can pretend to be synthetic telepathy, or they might think it's a spirit, a ghost, an ancestor, or something else, or even possession. I mean, this is what I mean. This is the technology that we have in the Defense Department, okay? This is an extraterrestrial. And my point is that those are the people that are really, in my opinion, need to be held accountable. Big time, because I can prove it. I was there. I'm a witness. I'm one of the last witnesses probably around. But I'll tell you point blank, they're not going to get away with it. And this is why I get angry. Don't blame it on ET, because I know what you guys are up to, and I know what you guys are capable of. And that's, that's just a whole can of worms nobody wants to go. What are you going to do?
Well, I think that one of the things that we're going to be seeing in the future is holographic projections that they're going to try to convince us that something is real when it's just a holograph.
Oh, yeah.
And
they can do all kinds of sideshows. You've seen the Sphere in Vegas, although I think it's incredibly beautiful and I really like it. But you've seen it, right?
The what?
The Sphere they built in Vegas, the big Sphere where they can hold, concerts and all kinds of cool stuff. check it out. Google Vegas and the Sphere in Vegas, and it actually has all these LED lights and all these really cool designs where it looks like the moon, it looks like the Death Star, and it's huge. It's absolutely, it's a big sphere. Very interesting.
Yeah, in China they have they have a picture. Somebody took a picture of this. It looks like it's a city floating in the clouds. And, you know, I looked at it and I said, it's a hologram. What, you know, why are, you know, it's kind of like, it's a hologram. Can't you tell that's a hologram?
Yeah. Well, it is becoming a bit like Disneyland. I mean, everything is kind of special effects and light shows. And, you know, it takes away from the credibility of the cosmos in a sense of there's so much more out there that blows this stuff away when it comes to the cosmic design work. And this obfuscation, the smoke screen, the sideshow, and it's pretty, it's entertaining, don't get me wrong, but it's really not what we need to be doing. We need to be more focused on the true configuration of space-time and not this other stuff.
Well, I think we're in for some pretty rocky couple of years here, for sure.
Oh, I do. I think so, too. And, you know, like I said, it's interesting to watch them, though. They're really trying to sanitize everything they've ever done. As far as I could tell, it seems that way. And recreate something that literally is based on a lie. So we'll see how far they get. But I think the universe has a way of opening up the doors and saying no. And it's time to show.
Well, you know, as far as you know, those who are considered to be aliens, I mean, they have to have, I would think, sort of a non-intervention clause that they can't cross. Even though Werner von Braun said he had help from aliens, and Hitler's, you know, said that they had alien help, and you know there have been, but I don't buy it, because I think we're being watched. I think that they're waiting for us to come to our senses, if that's ever going to happen, and I think a lot of the things we see are just drones. They aren't really spaceships. They're drones from probably the dark side of the moon. And you know, I just in a way, you know, are we some sort of an experiment?
Well, a lot of people think that. I would consider it to be a very strange experiment. You know, it's interesting about that whole thing with him because, in my opinion, I think it's a psyop. I think it was psychological operations. Just like the contract with Eisenhower and all this other stuff with, we contracted with ET. I think they were completely under psychological operations. They were psychologically imprinted with information that wasn't even based on truth. And what they considered to be extraterrestrial at that time was more like electronic command programming interface and a very advanced technology that basically fooled them, in my opinion. Not that it doesn't exist off planet, but I'm just saying that I think that they've been playing games for a very, very long time here. And it's starting to hit them. And so far as intervention goes, actually, because we are descendants of the visitors, if we are being repressed, oppressed, we are being tortured or harmed by universal law, yes, they can intervene. Absolutely, they can. So that's another thing that people don't want to go there. They say, that's impossible. You know, they start quoting Star Trek, and I'm like, no, you have to understand that our origins are cosmic, which means that when we're under attack here, that's an act of war, and it goes beyond the boundaries of a religion or an institution or a corporation or a government, which means that they just basically blew themselves to kingdom come by harassing beings like us here, the star beings, because our ancestors are still a living intelligence off planet, and yes, they can intervene. Absolutely, they can. So that's something people don't want to go to and look at, but I'm telling you, it's the truth. So, yeah, they can, and we can intervene too. Look how much influence we have off planet. People don't realize it, but you're multidimensional. You exist simultaneously beyond this illusion of space-time. Even if you don't believe it, you do. And that you know how it is. You can influence. You can navigate beyond this illusion here in this field of energy. You can go to different destinations off planet. We're not being held back. We have that rapport, and that's never going to change. But there are people here who have weaponized this platform here on this world. And in my opinion, the space platform has been weaponized to such a degree they're trying to keep everybody in a stasis of control to keep us from our origins off planet and to navigate. And that's inexcusable. That will have to be dealt with somehow, some way. And most of it's coming from these black defense departments, you know, these covert areas. So, you know, that's got to stop. End of story.
Well, I would
how they
agree
play
with
their
you.
little game. Yeah, I mean, we can't go like this forever, and this is what I mean by we're being lied to and lied to and lied to. How can you know this as a teacher? How can you possibly teach a student when you're not giving them the correct data? That's terrible. That's halting the evolution of a mass collective. Literally, you're lying to every single person. You're basically keeping them from their spiritual evolution, their intellectual evolution. It's inexcusable, and that's, to me, is the most criminal thing you could possibly do on any timeline.
Well, as a teacher, I absolutely, our education system is corrupt as hell. And I don't, if I had a child, I would be home teaching that child. Because there's nothing, I mean, they're not teaching the very basics, and they're teaching a very skewed view of history. And now with all of this other stuff they're shoving in there, I mean, the school system is a place where they're corrupting the kids. They aren't educating them. They aren't teaching them to think. And it's horrifying to me. I mean,
it's sabotage.
I got one grandkid in college and another one going in another year, and I'm horrified. I mean, I mean, first of all, what the colleges charge, and second of all, what they don't teach. I mean, the first 2 years of college when I went, and I'll grant you it was a long time ago. The first 2 years they called them core classes. In other words, they taught you what you should have learned in high school, but you didn't. So actual college education was the 2 years after that maybe you were going to get some good information. And I have to tell you, I mean, I did 4 years of college and I have 2 master's degrees, and I did not learn a thing. And
I believe it.
I was there to learn. You know, I was, you know, teach me. Nothing. Anything that I know today, I taught myself.
I agree.
And that, I think, is testimony to the fact that what do we need college for? If you really want to learn, you're going to learn. You'll find a way. You'll apprentice yourself. You will find a way to learn. It's that easy.
Totally agree. Yeah, just read. Have your own library, you know, and just study and yeah, I agree.
Well, yeah, and when you stop to think about it, the best way for somebody to learn is to be apprenticed to somebody who is a better teacher, a better practitioner of whatever it is. Now, when it comes to medicine and stuff like that, I don't know about that. But for almost everything else, it's sort of like memorizing something and spitting it back at something does not mean you've learned it. It means you memorized it. It doesn't mean you've integrated it into yourself so that you know it. It's just, you know, I passed the test. I learned it for the test. And that's not learning. So
no, to apply your knowledge. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, look at plumbers and electricians. They have apprentices. They learn it from, you know, working with someone who's a master of whatever. And I think that should be the case for almost every occupation out there. And
hands-on. You know, I've learned best hands-on. I've always been that way.
Oh yeah, and it's sort of like, you learn it when you're ready to learn it, not when somebody says you have to learn it in the 3rd grade or the 4th grade or you know. And and what they're teaching now. I mean, with you know, the gender disputes and everything like that. I mean, that's just
ridiculous.
Please,
you know, it's a sideshow. That's a distraction. Once again, that's a distraction. It has no value. It really doesn't. On a cosmic scale, it's the stupidest thing in the world. And I know people will get upset about that, but I don't care. Honestly, no. It's just once again, it's all these little sideshows, the scattering of energy, the confusion, keep people lost. You know, it's no good. And our benchmark is off planet. We are completely connected off planet. You know, it's that same where you're connected to source, your co-creation to source. We don't get disconnected, and with that comes all kinds of knowledge and information. And people really want to find it. They don't teach anything. No, you're right. It's ridiculous. Go ahead.
I mean, I think there should be there should be classes in metaphysics. I think that people should learn about, the chakras. They should learn about energy. They should learn about, how they can work with their own energy to make things happen. I mean, when I graduated from college, I knew nothing, and it was amazing. I had a degree. That's all, and what, I got the 2 masters because I got a bump in salary every time I got another 30 credits. So I did it, but I didn't learn anything. And you sit back and me today and me 30 years ago. Wow, what a difference! I mean. But it was all because I was doing research myself. I was doing things myself. I was learning and then practicing so that I had an idea of what it was that I was talking about. And that's not the case today. It's just not. And it frightens me. And college is so expensive. Holy moly.
Yeah, it's all about the money. Well, it's a club. It's a certificate to tell you've been in a club, and that club will give you more money, supposedly.
Well, it's true. I mean, I don't know about my son, but I know my neighbor has a kid in school, and it's $80,000 a year.
Oh, that's ridiculous. What's he studying?
Nothing. I hate to say it, but nothing. He's. He doesn't know what he wants to do or be when he grows up. So he's taking liberal art. Oh, that chokes me to this day. That when my son went to college, it was like I said to him, I don't care what you study. If you love it, study it. Go for it. But the minute you say to me liberal arts is the minute I yank you out of school.
Well, that's or psychology, right? That's another one that's a really easy one. You get through psychology, and then it's like, oh, come on. Don't get me started with that.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. I think anybody who has it's a terrible thing to say. I'm not going to say it anyhow. I think people who have studied psychology tend to analyze everyone inappropriately, and they have to go through so much. They have to go through so much of the testing and the therapy type stuff in order to get the degree that it makes them crazy to start with. So all they're doing is passing on crazy.
I totally agree.
And,
yeah, that's, I mean, they have no business even beginning to consult anybody else with those backgrounds. Yeah, it's all also related when you look deeper. It really is psychological operations, but you can read anything into situations, but I'll tell you that's a very dangerous area, if you ask me.
Yeah, I know a couple of psychologists, and they are absolutely nuts. I mean, I'm sure there are good ones that are not nuts. I'm not saying it's global, but I am finding that common sense works a lot better than a psychiatric degree. And
totally.
I think what horrifies me is they're taking all of these kids who are just wired a little differently, and they're putting a label on them that they will have for the rest of their lives. Jeannie's son has ADHD, and he has a couple of other diagnoses, and she for quite a while has talked that her son is mentally ill. And I said, your son is not mentally ill. Stop saying it. You'll make him mentally ill. But he's not mentally ill. He's just wired differently and has to be approached differently and has to learn differently. That's all it is. It's a different approach to learning and understanding things. And I cringe when people say, well, they have this or they have that, and it's on mental stuff, and it's like, come on, this kid just learns differently, so teach him differently. Right,
exactly. Well, they like to use the terminology mentally disturbed, and But what does that actually mean? You're disturbing the mental body, basically. Somehow, some way, something is disturbing the mental body. But, after where I've been, I can also tell you that a lot of those technologies out there can create heterodyning to create schizophrenia patterns, bipolar disorders, multiple personalities with synthetic alters. There's a technology that can mimic everything you can imagine on a psychological scale to make a person look insane when they're not. And that is a dangerous, once again, a war crime. So, once again, is it being addressed? Will it ever be addressed? Absolutely not. Probably not. Not in my lifetime. So, yeah, that's the real one. I go right to the core of the people that are involved in these things, and I go right to the beast, right to it.
I mean, I just look at one of the people here in the complex has a daughter who is she's been diagnosed for a lot of things, but she's been tested for disability, and she passes all the tests, so she doesn't get disability. And I looked at her one day, and I said, you're putting everybody on. And she just looked at me, and I said, don't have to say anything. You got a good act and a good shtick, and so long as somebody's going to support you, you can be as weird as you want. But you're faking this, and I don't buy any of it.
What'd she say?
And she smiled at me, and she said, huh. And I said, I'm not saying anything to your grandparents or your parents. Take it wherever I said, please understand that you're not that good. So sooner or later, somebody is going to catch you, and you're going to be out with a shout. So I would start the healing process and be miraculously healed in the next 2 to 3 years, or you're going to be in big trouble after that.
Good advice.
I said, look at what Adolf Hitler did with all of the people that were like you pretend to be. And she said, what did he do? I said, he killed them. They weren't functional. They couldn't function in society. He just killed them. And she said, no, that never happened. And I said, oh my goodness. I said, I hope I never have to say I told you so to you, but that's the truth. And
well, good for you on that.
Yeah, it's her journey.
But still, you don't want to play that. The boy that cried wolf too many times hits you in the butt. Well,
it's going to get her medicated. It's
right.
going to get. They're going to shove medication in her. She's going to lose her focus, and sooner or later, she may be as crazy as she pretends to be.
Right. If they give them psychiatric drugs when they don't need it, sure, it's going to mess with their brain chemistry. Absolutely.
Yeah. But and a lot of these kids are so smart. They are so smart. It just blows me away. And if you give them information, if you give them material that they can work with and eat up and appreciate, they're just hungry for real honesty and good information. And
right.
If they're not being given it, then they'll play their games. But they are wired differently. There's no doubt about it. There are different ways of learning for them than the norm. But still, in all, the schools aren't trying to work on those, in those areas and create programs appropriate for them. They're just classifying them as sick, and you have that diagnosis, and she'll have it the rest of her life, and that's what really pisses me off.
Yeah, that's terrible. They don't realize what kind of damage they're doing to their futures. They really don't. It's unfortunate.
No, they're our future. That's what gets me. This is our future. So it is a very sad thing, and the reality is, these kids today, the capacity they have for learning is profound, but they are absolutely hypnotized by cell phones and stuff like that, so that their brain isn't working, and And if you never find something that tickles you or makes you want to learn more, then you just kind of go off into la la land and play your games and do your AI stuff, and that's life. I mean, the school system here in Tennessee. Now they've already started school. They started 1st of August. Well, they started actually last week.
Wow.
Because the kids only have to take 4 classes each. They have 3 different. They have 3 different quarters, and each quarter has only 4 classes in it. So they only have to take 4 classes at a time, so they don't have to spend so much time doing homework, and so that it takes longer, but they have less time that they have to study. I did 7 classes a day, and it didn't kill me. I did homework. Sometimes I did a lot of homework, but it's kind of like the kids today. Just they've had a year, 2 years off of school, and now they can't get back into it. Now it's just. I mean, I don't know what's happening. It's just. I'm really glad that
was a.
And shutting the schools down was not necessary.
I agree. The whole thing was crazy as can be. It's just, like I said, it just really messed up a lot. Whether people realize it or not, it was a real disservice. That's when the satellites went up, too. A lot more stuff going on, too. Weaponization of the space platform. That was a whole shutdown.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest side events.
Seriously? How many satellites went up?
Oh, gosh, I can't even count how many he's put up now. There's so many. It's not just Musk. I mean, there's so many satellites, but a lot of them are weaponized. These are very bad satellites. They're not the ones that are just, we're just going to get you a better signal. We're talking serious warfare programs and remote stuff that can be very detrimental to the brainwave activity of a target, even in mass collective. If they're accessing it the way I think they are, which I'm pretty sure they can. So, not good. I said it before. I called it as soon as they started launching. I said, no, this is not going to work out. This is bad. So.
Well, yeah.
And I can tell because my tech, my wiring is sensitive to that. Well, go ahead.
Well, and what I'm noticing is that there is so much static around that it's unbelievable. And this 5G is supposed to give you clearer everything, and I don't see it's giving anything clearer. And I mean, I don't even with the phone. I never put a phone to my ear. I'm always on a headset. I'm not. Are my brains going to get scrambled? Well, probably not. But I just know that the toys that we've got are not beneficial to us. And
they're benefiting them in their bank accounts right now. That's it. And the white noise, by the way, there's a lot. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, white noise. Go for the white noise because
I was just going to say there's a lot of encrypted radio transmissions that are going on now. As psychic as you are, which you're probably able to decode a lot of information when you're streaming consciousness, and you might get some information based on like maybe a radio transmission that's literally manufactured. I don't know if that's happened or not, but my point is that this whole all the bandwidth is being saturated in noise, and a lot of that has to do with sound bites and real-time communication. And what's interesting is that we've been catching this. A friend of mine who does radio and another lady, they've been catching like information. They've been kind of using certain software to decode, like if we're having a conversation, there's noise around us nonstop, but we can't hear it right now. But that's what I'm telling you. There's so much happening with the noise and the transmissions that people aren't even aware of that, and it has to affect people psychologically or energetically. It has to.
Oh, yeah,
it has to be having an effect.
Absolutely. There is subliminal stuff going on all over the place. Absolutely. And not only that, but I know here in Tennessee, I know that they're doing an amazing amount of tunneling in the country, and I don't know what for. I mean, if you can go someplace in the country faster in a tunnel rather than flying an airplane, go for it. But I don't get the feeling that this is going to be for the general public. I get the feeling this is, just for the military. And I don't know what's actually going on, except I am absolutely positive that the tunneling that's going on is it's for military reasons. It's down far enough so that it will be protected no matter what happens. But the Chinese especially don't want to do anything to our land because they need it to grow food for their country, so they're not going to hurt us. And I don't know about Russia, but I don't know enough about the politics to be able to speak with great authority, except I know the tunneling is going on. I know it's going on throughout this country, throughout Canada, probably into Mexico. And there's something going on that we are all just, carrying on our lives blindly, and sooner or later something is going to just absolutely smack us in the face, and we're going to sit back and say, oh, my God, how did we miss this? And how do we change it? Because this is not good. It's coming. It's coming. I'm seeing more and more riots, and what's happening in France it could one day happen here.
Oh, sure. What you're describing, I was under the impression we had the facilities underground already intact. So they might be expanding from what you're describing. It could be a lot of other stuff, but yeah, they're all going to be taken care of, or at least they think they are. When anything hits the fan on ground control, they'll go underground. But I'm telling you, they're going to get snuffed out under there too. They're not going to make it. I don't care what they think. But what comes to mind is the Bosnian pyramids come to mind, and for various reasons. Remember when they had that transmission that was there, where they had to, and you can take it for what it is, but they sealed the gates, or they sealed the door. They were under attack. I don't know if you remember that or not. Yeah, I've always haunted me in a weird way because. Yeah, go ahead. They would
stay there until the Stargate opened again.
Right. I mean, to me, I think that what I think it feels a lot like that energetically. Like there needs to be a safe haven, and we are kind of like vulnerable right now if we're walking this world and we're not underground in some area that's secured. I find that we're extremely vulnerable to the aerial warfare above our heads and some of the other stuff that's been going on here with this agenda. So it'll be interesting to see. But, yeah, it would be a great place. The Bosnian pyramids would be a haven for a lot of people if you're out over in that area.
Yeah,
when it hits the fan, I'd head over there.
I would love to see them. And Sam Agmanovich is an incredible man. Have you ever interviewed him?
He is. Yeah, I have, and he's so wonderful. I mean, you don't have to do anything but just let him roll, and he's absolutely stellar with his information.
I did laundry and baked cookies. Yes.
Did you?
No, Mark didn't get him. I got him. but
oh, cool.
Yeah,
I think Mark got me. I think pretty sure it was him. Yeah.
Oh, he may have. But no, when I got him on the show and I welcomed him, and he said, "Thank you, Barbara," and then he said, "And you're going to ask me this," and the next thing I knew, he was interviewing himself. He asked the question, and I would say, and that was it. 2 hours. I did nothing. One of the best interviews I've ever done.
That's so funny.
Oh, I loved him. He was great, and he's gonna be at that pyramid conference in Chicago.
Wow. I wonder why Chicago. I'm not a fan of Chicago, so that probably wouldn't be a good place for me. Some other location.
Well, I think that's because that's where the gal who runs it lives.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, Marta Thomas. She runs the Pyramid Conference, and she's got a lot of good guests this year. She really does.
Oh, I bet.
But the thought of being at a convention does not thrill me at all.
No.
But I would love to meet Dr. Sam. I really would. He's I know he's going to be there for sure. So, well, someday maybe, but not this year. I have no desire to get on an airplane and go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't either. I really like to take a vacation, but I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, it is. It's just kind of like it's so crazy, and I'm hoping that it's going to get less crazy, and I know that's kind of foolish and that's silly of me, but I really was hoping that things would settle down, but it doesn't seem that they're going to be, and because of all the heat and the heat waves that we've had, people lose focus and lose everything in this kind of heat, and we've been over 100 for over a week. So
it's
up there.
It is, yeah. Well, that doesn't help that they're using all this weaponization either, and microwaves and everything else contributing factor to wet atmospheric conditions, even though they don't want to admit it. So, yeah, that's real interesting. But stay cool, stay hydrated. My suggestion.
One thing I have to say for Nashville is that they have the most beautiful thunder and lightning storms ever. I'm able to go outside and sit. I have a patio that's all covered, and I can just sit in the storms and just watch them roll in, and it's just it's blissful. It really is. It's just
that's nice.
I love thunder and lightning storms. So
me too.
Didn't have very good ones in Connecticut, but I just
we have good ones out here too. Yeah, I know. We're just about out of time.
We talked ourselves out. I'll send you that name of that book and that link.
Okay.
And
thank you.
It looks like it's only a couple hundred pages, so it's not a long read at all. But
nice.
it's pretty interesting. I have started reading it, so we can compare notes if you get it. But
that's right. Maybe we can discuss it on a show.
Yeah, we could do that. That would be great.
Yeah.
Maybe for the next show. When's the next show? The next show is in August. The next show is the 27th of August.
Plenty of time. Yeah.
That give you time?
Yeah, it does. Just send me the information. Yeah.
I will.
Okay.
We'll do a book report.
Sounds fabulous. Well, I must say it's always such a pleasure to be with you each month, Barbara. I just respect you so much, and it's been a real joy to have communication with you and be here tonight.
Well, it's so nice to have someone who talks the same language too. So
I
so appreciate you. And there's never a time when there's nothing to say, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly. Went from animals to something else, but it was a great show.
Yes, it is. Okay, I will talk to you soon. I'll send you the Amazon link to that book, and should post it someplace. I will put it on my website at some point in time, and if somebody out there wants the name of the book that we're going to be talking about in 3 weeks, email me at barbaradulong.com, and I will send you the link to the book too. Be fun to kind of get a whole group going. So thank you for being here. Want to shoot out your website and the shows?
Sure. My website's nightshadowanomalydetectives.com. My show's Hyperspace on KCOR 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific on Friday nights. I have Raven Star's Witching Hour on Saturday nights on Revolution.Radio Studio A, 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. And thank you again, Barbara. It's been awesome.
Oh, my pleasure. And I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Good night now.
Night.
And good night, everybody. Thanks for sharing your time with us, as always. And if you do want the name of the book, barbaradulong.com is my Gmail, and I'll happily send you the link to it, too. So good night, and thanks again for joining us. It's been always a pleasure to be with Solaris. Good night now.